Hey guys, how's it going? Today I'm going to show you how to increase the resolution of any image. This technique works best with artwork in particular, or anything you might want to stylize pretty strongly. It's not going to work quite as well with photos. So I have this image from the game Transistor. I believe it's official artwork for it, and the highest resolution I could find this image in was 720p. And that's not a bad resolution. It's medium resolution, but I wanted something that was at least 1080p and crystal clear. Now, with that in mind, I started looking for a way to accomplish that. Here's the final result. You can see that it's not identical. They're close. They're just not identical. The benefit here, though, is that it is much higher resolution. For the example, I scaled it up to 12K so that you can just see that all these lines stay crisp and clear. Okay, so let's go ahead and find an image to use, and I will show you how to do this. So open up a browser, go to Google Images, images.google.com, or alternatively just google.com and search for whatever you want. And then type in images. I find it's faster just to go images.google.com, but whatever, doesn't matter. Bastion is another game, also by Supergiant Games, huge fan. This looks awesome. It's already pretty high resolution, but we will go ahead and use it anyway. I'll scale it down just to show you how effective this still is. So we'll open it up, the full resolution version of this one that we found. Pro tip, actually, before we move on, you can click this resolution button in Google Images and it will find you the highest resolution version online that Google knows of. Now, fair warning, in most cases, these are just scaled and not actually higher resolution versions. Be aware, but it's a helpful tool. So we'll right click and say copy our image. We'll create a new document in Photoshop. When creating a new document in Photoshop, when you press new, it will automatically have a default resolution of whatever is in the clipboard. And because we just right-clicked and said copy, the clipboard is this image. So it knows this image is 1920 by 1080. Create a document that's 1920 by 1080. Really straightforward. So now we have this image. We're going to scale it down to 720p, okay? So just to show you how well this works, it's decent resolution, but it's not gonna be crystal clear, not by any stretch of the imagination, really. I also don't really care for this boundary here, so I am going to take my crop tool. I'm gonna press Control A to select all, and then Control C to copy it. Then I'm going to open up Illustrator. And you don't need the latest version of Illustrator or anything like that. I'm using CS5 right now, so whatever. I think this could work in even as far back as CS2. Or at least whenever Photoshop added smart objects, maybe past CS2. I don't know. You don't need the latest version. Whatever you have should work. So open up a new document in Illustrator. I just have a width of 10 inches, height of 6 inches. It's arbitrary. It doesn't really matter what this resolution is. Just something that's, preferably widescreen, I suppose. You can see that the image we just pasted in using Control V is bigger than the document. So what I'll do here is hold down Shift and Alt simultaneously and grab any corner of this image and just scale it down to be within the document space. Again, not really necessary. I prefer it just to be inside the document. So now we have our image inside Illustrator. It's not vectorized yet. And to clarify, I suppose, for those of you who don't know what a vector image is versus a raster or a pixel-based image. So with pixel-based images, everyone knows what this is. We have a bajillion pixels, each one in different color, and we have a nice big resolution photo, and when you zoom out it looks like one cohesive photo. The problem is here, if you try and scale it up, then you start seeing all the pixels, you start seeing the graininess, the blockiness. Pixel images, also known as raster images, do not scale great at all. Vector images, on the other hand, are completely different. And I'll just take this this one as an example. Vector images are mathematical curves, shapes, paths. It's all geometric. It's not pixels, it's shapes. So you can zoom in on this shape, no matter how far you go, it's still going to be completely clear because it's not, oh, where does this pixel go, where does that pixel go? It's a shape. If you zoom in on the edge of a circle that is a vector, that edge is never going to get blurry because it's, the computer knows it's a circle. Back into the document where we just pasted in this image. You're going to want to click Object, Live Trace, and Tracing Options. You're going to want to set the mode to grayscale and max colors to, I would say, 4. You can technically do 3 or 2. I wouldn't do 3. 3 behaves weird in my experience. And you could go higher, but for this we're going to stick with 4. I think it looks the best. You end up getting a almost not quite black and white style, and it looks pretty good. Don't worry that we're setting it to grayscale. We will get all the color back. So, max colors 4. So, max colors 4. Blur, I would increase that just a little bit. I mean, probably 2.2 should be fine. Maybe a little bit lower. It kind of depends on the image. With a 720p image, this is what I would go with. And under trace settings, set path fitting to about 10 pixels, minimum area to about 20 pixels, and corner angle to about 4. What this does is, and you can always just hover over these and read the values yourself, but in brief, path fitting, and you can set these values to whatever you like, but this is definitely what I recommend for this style. And what we're basically saying here with this path fitting and minimum area and corner angle, especially these two values, setting them so high, I guess, compared to default, is we're telling Illustrator that when it goes to try and vectorize this image, take an open interpretation. Don't worry about being too particular. If we set the path fitting down to 1 pixel, it's just going to end up creating little vector squares of all of the pixels, which is effectively the same thing as a raster image, and not what we want at all. So what we'll do here is say preview. I would not say trace. Being able to preview is wonderful and can save a lot of time. Now it looks like here we have pretty good results. Just gonna go back in there. It's really unfortunate you can't zoom in with this window open, so my apologies. Just reset all these settings. I'm gonna try this at 7 here, just for curiosity's sake, and lower my blur a little bit. Path fitting, we'll try 8 and 16. I have these double. You don't have to have them double. It's just something that I found works kind of nice. Too many colors. We'll try that. That looks pretty good to me. I feel like we still get the shape of his eyes. And some of that detail will come back later on in this tutorial when we bring back the color. Okay, so with this previewed, and I feel pretty happy with this, hit trace. And ta-da, we have a vectorized version of our image. But of course, it is grayscale, not technically black and white. Meh. Grayscale. But it is crystal clear, and you can zoom in as far as you could like, or dream of even, and it stays crystal clear, and we have these really nice, smooth curves in the entire thing, which I absolutely love. Looks great on his hair. So what we'll do here is select this traced image then, hit Control-C to copy. Alternatively, you can always just say Edit, Copy. Same difference. We're going to go back into Photoshop. And on this same document where we had the original image, we're just going to paste. And we want to paste this as a smart object. Now, the difference between a smart object and pixels is that a smart object retains all of the original vector data that we're pasting in. So if we later on say, oh, hey, I want this image to be 4K instead of 1080p, when I go to image scale in Photoshop, all of that vector data will reintegrate itself per se. And really keep that clarity. So you definitely want this as a smart object. I'm going to line it up to the top left-hand corner and scale it out. And this doesn't have to be perfectly lined up, but I'm just going to make sure it's pretty darn close just by turning the opacity up and down for a second. And it looks good to me. So you're going to take this vector smart object layer, bring it underneath the original one, and then set the blend mode for this original layer to be color. And you'll notice immediately what this does is restore all the color information from the original photo or the original piece of artwork and applies it to this vector image in a really nice looking way. Now, it's not quite perfect. It looks pretty darn good though. So we'll go a little bit further and I can show you some further steps to just bring out the best in this. What I'll do here is duplicate that layer again, and I duplicated that just by dragging the layer onto the new layer button, which duplicates it. There's probably a hotkey for it. I actually don't know what it is off the top of my head. I'm going to set the blend mode back to normal just so I can kind of look at what this looked like beforehand. I'll also use this as a backup in case I do some irreversible damage to this color layer. So what we'll do next is go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. And fortunately in Photoshop you can zoom in while previewing things. And you can see here that if I set this to a ridiculously high value, it loses everything. So I don't want it set too high, but a little bit would be good. What I'm aiming for here is basically to get rid of a lot of this raster data, as it's gonna again scale poorly later on, but not ruin it in such a way that it, hurts the image. That looks good to me, about 5 pixels. Okay, so this looks pretty good at this point. The next thing I'm going to do is just create a new layer that's normal blend mode. Go to my brush tool, set the hardness down to 0, and set the size up to, let's go a little bit higher, a bit smaller, 300-ish. Pro tip, you can change the size of your brush on the fly using the open and close bracket keys on your keyboard. Close bracket or open bracket to make it smaller, close bracket to make it bigger. Very handy stuff. I'm going to make sure the opacity is set down to something like 5, and I'm just going to take a straight black brush and sort of fill in these edges a little bit, add a bit of a vignette. Try to help the composition of the artwork a little bit, because a lot of that effect was lost in transition. Take a white brush up here, make sure I'm actually on the correct layer. It's a little bit strong. Undo that slightly. So I see the light is coming from this general area, and so there should technically be a shadow here. And so I'll just shade that down a little bit to help again with the natural composition. If we look at this original image, we can see that the whites of his eyes didn't come in at all, and sort of this information in general didn't really make it. So what we can do here is just turn that layer back off, and we will create a new adjustment layer by clicking this button, and we'll just say levels. And if you hold down Alt and click this, you can see that it automatically has a mask associated with it. We don't really need to go into the mask, but I'm just showing you how to do it anyway, I guess. Control I inverts the mask so that this effect doesn't show at all, and that's fine. And then we're just going to take a mild brush here, make sure that the mask is selected, take our brush tool with a white color. In this case, if you don't know how Photoshop pixel blending masks work, white is completely active, black is inactive. Everything in between is partials. So right now this adjustment layer doesn't do anything because it can't. As soon as we add some white in this area though, where his eyes are, it will be able to. We should probably crank up the opacity a little bit. If we hold down Alt and look at this, it looks like this is a little bit brighter than the other one. Just brighten this up so that they look to be about the same. So you're not going to be able to see any difference yet, but as soon as we go to levels here, we can have some pretty neat stuff go on. We can turn him into something that's possessed, I suppose, or also possessed. But really what I'm aiming to do here is just brighten it up a little bit to help bring some of his eye color back in. Just a little bit. It doesn't do a whole lot, but it's subtle and I like the difference. And it's just, you know, a nice thing to know how to do. I'm going to hit the I key to use my eyedropper, and I'm just going to grab probably about this tone. Take my brush tool, use my bracket key, close bracket key to really scale it up. Turn off this layer, set a new layer to the blend mode of overlay. Overlay just tends to do much better with colors in general and kind of retaining them. And I'm just going to go around here, slightly lower opacity, who knows, and brush around a little bit. And you can see that really kind of brings some of the color back. I'll turn this on again, grab more of the orange tone. Kind of work my way around. And you can see that when I turn this on and off, a lot of that color comes back, thankfully. Cool. All right, I think this looks good. Now, for the part that you actually came here for, increasing the resolution, let's just bring this up to 2560 by 1440. 1440 by whatever arbitrary resolution it picks. Then I'll go to canvas size and then pixels 2560. There we go. Some clipping will occur, that's fine. And we have our high resolution version. Here it is at 100% zoom. And you can see that it's very clear. You could fix this by increasing the number of colors in the live trace. Another way you could do it is just by changing the amount of brightness and contrast in the image before going into Illustrator to do the live trace. I love the fact that we have really nice smooth curves, especially in his hair. That turned out great. And yeah, so there you go. Here is a tutorial on how to use Photoshop and Illustrator, pretty much any version of Photoshop and Illustrator, to create a higher resolution version of a piece of artwork or photo, potentially, if you want to go that way. Again, fair warning, photos aren't going to react quite as well. Thank you for watching. Subscribe, and if you want to subscribe, like or dislike the video, I don't honestly care. Y'all are great people. I'm sure it's up to you. Make your own decisions. I'm not going to tell you what to do. Have a great day, though. I will tell you to have a great day. Bye, guys.